Bozich is with us. Rick, Indiana taking on their second blue blood. Well, Arizona, I don't know if it's a blue blood, but exactly, Ruby. Um, with Kansas, it's this is one of those great matchups at Kansas, so it's going to be a historic environment. But this is the game Indiana actually might have a much better shot than Arizona. Arizona is much bigger than Kansas. And talking to Shea Wildeboer from Jayhawk Slant yesterday, he says that they're very concerned about what Trace Jackson Davis can do inside because that's not their forte this year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, that was one of the biggest issues in the Arizona game is that I can't remember his name, the transfer from Gonzaga, the big guy, it reminded me of Trace Jackson Davis's struggles with Kofi Coburn against Illinois. A bigger, thicker guy. He had problems sort of moving him off the block. He had problems scoring over him. What did he finish, 7 and 4? Is that what he had in that game? 7 points and 4 rebounds? It wasn't much. Yeah. Kansas doesn't have that. Kansas is more athletic, I think. I'm not sure they're as deep as Arizona. The tougher part of this game will be handling the environment at Allen Fieldhouse. It's one of the 4 or 5 toughest in the country. And Indiana will have to go in there and hold their poise together and integrate Jalen Hood-Schifino back into it. And Trace Jackson Davis, he's been playing. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I wonder if he's 100%. He didn't look as quick and as agile as he normally does in that game against Arizona.
And I feel like, too, Rick, I talk about this quite a bit. I feel like it's still hurting Indiana in games like they play against Arizona when he doesn't have a jump shot. And I think you look at the stat line. If I've said this 30 times, so I apologize. I'm like a broken.
I haven't heard it.
I think if you told me Indiana goes 10 of 25 from behind the 3-point line, they're going to have a great shot to win, and they lost by 14 points. That just, to me, speaks to the importance of having both an inside presence and an outside presence, not only against Arizona but in this game. And they've got to figure out a way to get inside points. And I just feel like Trace Jackson Davis's inability to hit a shot from the free throw line or inward is really devastating to them right now.
Yeah, I mean, both Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson didn't score around the rim against Arizona. I mean, Race had a good game because he had all those threes, right, but neither one of them could finish around the rim against those Arizona guys. So that and Malik Renew, what do you have, 1 basket, maybe 2? His first few were blocked or he traveled or whatever. So all of those guys need to kind of show improvement. And as you mentioned, Jim, Kansas is not the inside force that Arizona is. Very few teams are. I mean, Arizona, to me, I know they lost that game somehow to Utah, which I don't understand. But I saw them in the Maui Invitational. I saw them against Indiana. If you asked me to make a list right now, Final Four teams, Arizona would be on my list.
Absolutely. I think they're going to be a number 1 seed. I don't know how they won't be. They're just so big. And they have the guard play to back it up.
And they're older, more mature guys. I mean, those guys who played in Europe they just look really self-confident and strong and, ready to go.
I just feel like, not to talk too much about Arizona, but I get the sense that you just hope that they miss. Like, I don't know that there is any way to stop them. You just have to hope that they're having a bad shooting night. Otherwise, it's game over because they can beat you inside. They can beat you outside. Their big men move quick. They are incredible.
And they ran the floor like Cody Zeller, their big man. And their whole team got down the floor quick. I mean, they got down in their offense and got into it quick. They had multiple guys who could make threes. They play with a little bit of swagger. They had the 6'6" guy. I don't remember his name. He was from another European guy. He could drive the ball. I mean, they've got everything you need in a team. Every element you want, they have it.
Yeah, and this would be a great propel for Indiana into, I know they don't start conference play immediately right afterwards, but it would be a great boost for them to not only beat a team like Arizona or Kansas, to win in an environment like that, because they're going to have to go to Purdue. I can't remember if they go to Michigan State this year or not.
Illinois.
But, Illinois, these environments, none of them. Purdue is the only one that's going to match Fog Allen, but it's going to be, if you can win at Fog Allen, you can win anywhere. I mean, that's a great learning lesson for them, especially the younger guys that are going to have to go through this for the first time. Malik Renew, Jalen Hood-Schifino, even Trey Galloway, those guys who are having a much bigger role in it. So it's Trey Galloway especially, he's probably going to have a bigger role, and he needs the experience in that as well.
Right. I mean, they're going to have to play better and handle that kind of stuff better than they did at Rutgers. I thought against Rutgers, that they didn't have Hood-Schifino for the first time, so that was an adjustment, but I didn't think they handled the environment or the crowd or the toughness of the game very well. Rutgers was tougher than Indiana and took it to them, and Indiana didn't really respond. Kansas is going to do the same thing, and they're going to have to respond. And, in both games they've lost, which have both been by double figures, they struggled early, and then they kind of came back but never could get over the hump. They need to start better and start a little bit more assertively.
And one of the keys too for them has been Xavier Johnson. I mean, these 3 games without Jalen Hood-Schifino, he's played really poorly. I mean, I know he had 11 assists, so he did find ways to contribute. But I think against Arizona, 3 for 13, against Rutgers, I think like 2 for 9 or 10, something in that category. He hasn't played one. It makes me wonder, like, is he having I think that there's no doubt now he's having trouble adjusting without Jalen Hood-Schifino on the floor and having to play with Trey Galloway. Not that Trey Galloway is not a good player. It's just different styles. He maybe doesn't have quite that comfort level yet. But this is, to me, even though you have lost a couple games already, some of that learning curve, because there's going to be times this season when guys are hurt, when guys are going to be in foul trouble. You're going to have to learn to adjust and play with those other lineups. I mean, so to me, I think one of the biggest keys is Xavier Johnson trying to find some level of comfort and not press too much on Saturday like he has these past couple games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he played better, I thought, in the second half or last 25 minutes against Arizona. When he was on the floor, I think actually I read somewhere that Indiana was actually when he actually was on the floor, Indiana actually outscored Arizona. But I'm sure it is different playing with Galloway, because when you're playing with Galloway, opposing defenses don't really have to respect his outside shot. They can sag, and the other guard can sort of help off Galloway on Johnson, and that's not the case with Hood-Schifino, whose shot is also inconsistent, but he takes more. And he's made more. He's not shooting a high enough percentage yet, but you have to respect it because he's going to try and do it. Whereas Galloway seems to be mainly a guy who's either going to drive and dish or shoot that floater. He's not going to pull up. He'll take the open 3, but he's not going to try and create a jump shot for himself.
And I'm looking forward to seeing if Xavier Johnson, with that crowd, can maintain it. You mentioned composure and poise. He's probably the guy that most has to do that. He's done a relatively good job of it. It is shown a little bit with the absence of Jalen Hood-Schifino. I think that he is realizing more and more the importance of what he has to do, but hopefully he'll have him out there again. He feels a lot more comfortable, obviously, with Jalen out there. Nothing against Trey, but Trey is not Jalen Hood-Schifino. He can't do some of the things that he can do. So it's going to be a big-time change for this offense if they can get him on the floor. But even having him back, I wonder, is he going to be at full strength? We don't know. I guess if he's going to play, he's going to be able to play. There's no sense of being out there if you're half speed.
Yeah, the thing I'll say about Xavier Johnson, he's improved in the sort of extracurricular since he's been at Indiana, but he still seems to have 1 or 2 moments in every game where, like, he'll get a bad call or the opposing guy will, do something to him where the other guy doesn't get called, and it seems to sort of then that becomes his focus instead of the game, of where he'll do one of those exaggerated things, like it looks like he's a soccer player where he just got shot by a sniper or something, and just because the guy bumped him. And just concentrate on playing the game, stay the same level the whole way through. Don't get too high, don't get too low. He seems to get sort of his focus kind of switches away from the game to how the ref is calling the game or what the player is saying or whatever.
To that point, Rick, I think here's what's going to be interesting to me about this week. I don't know if anybody saw this, but I believe it's the round. I don't know what the podcast is called, Round of 68 or something like that, with a lot of current or former basketball players on it. And former Rutgers guard Geo Baker, after that Arizona game, said, "What can I say? They're soft." and Xavier Johnson commented on it and said thank you. So
Again?
I don't know if that's a good thing for Indiana because he'll be laser focused, or if it's a bad thing because he's going to try to prove to the world that he can be the best player in the country. Like there's two ways I think that can really go. I'm not knocking a 22-year-old kid for commenting on a Twitter post, but knowing what you just said about how Xavier Johnson can be a little bit of a roller coaster, that adds a level of intrigue for this game and how he plays to me.
Yeah, it's a level of social media awareness that I don't think is helpful. Don't worry about who cares what Geo Baker says. He's irrelevant now. He's not playing anywhere. He's got nothing better to do than get on the internet and troll Indiana fans, and they take the bait. Indiana players.
Well, hopefully the Trey Jackson Davis takes that to heart a little bit, though. Although it's not that he didn't try to play, he was just sometimes you're just up against someone who's better, and that was just the case. That's superior talent. We that was NBA talent that we were looking at for certain, and I don't know, but I think that also brings up, and this is a long ways off for this conversation, but the continued talk of what Trace Jackson Davis is going to be able to do in his future. I mean, that game right there kind of showed he's going to have trouble in the NBA because he took one jump shot at the very beginning of the game, but an 8-footer that didn't go down.
Right.
And I don't think they tried another, but that was kind of what we saw. He has another year of eligibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to do it. He just needs to shoot more. Race Thompson's not afraid to miss threes. Not at all. He airballs some of them. He still keeps shooting them. I think he needs to be encouraged to shoot those 10 to 12 footers to get the defense to soften up a bit. He just doesn't seem to have that comfort zone in terms of doing that.